There's the purpose of the session. It's to explore the growth plan and other recent changes to the planning framework and opportunities and strategies for public engagement. So first of all, I'm going to present some information on how I see things changing in terms of that planning landscape. And then I'll present some ideas for tools that environmental defense may be developing in the future in order to help you do the work that you do as ratepayers and ratepayer groups. In the workshop portion, which we'll get to after my talk, I'll ask you to discuss the tools and provide feedback on how useful they might be in the work that you do. There are two handouts. Have the handouts gone around? So there will be two handouts. The first one is the slides of my presentation, in case, because there's quite a lot of information in here, I think. So I thought it might be helpful to hand out the slides in case you want something to scribble on. And then the second handout is actually related to the workshop itself. It's a workbook that we'll ask you to fill out over the course of the workshop, and then we'll pick it up at the end because it's actually information for us to take back and to analyze. So before we start talking about the changing planning landscape, which is the main purpose of my talk, I want to back up a bit and talk about why the growth plan is needed in the first place. And this is going to reprise and maybe extend a little bit the information that David and Darren has already presented to you about the growth plan and the ideas behind it. The growth plan is, I am a regional planner, so I follow regional planning issues, and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, or the GGH, as people in the business call it, it has won very prestigious planning awards North America wide, and it's widely considered to be one of or the most progressive regional plan in North America. It's a plan with vision and with teeth. Now, why did it come into being? It came into being because the Greater Golden Horseshoe was suffering from some major systematic problems. Namely, it was one of the most congested metropolitan areas in North America. Air pollution coming partly from all those cars was killing thousands of people annually in the region. Farmland was being eaten up at an alarming rate. Forests and other natural areas were disappearing. And municipalities were simply not able to keep up with the very expensive infrastructure supports needed to keep extending the municipal fabric out into the countryside. So there's been a lot of talk about happy cities ever since Charles Montgomery put out his book, which is the cover that you can see there, a few years ago with that title. And basically the book looks at how we build cities and how that affects our physical and psychological well-being. There's no doubt that sprawl makes many people happy, and that it's a very simple and surefire way of producing a lot of housing on large lots and building the transportation infrastructure for people to get from one place to another, normally by cars. The problem with this approach is that it works fine for people at the individual scale, but not so well at the aggregate scale. No one designs a city to be congested, unhealthy, and sprawling into the countryside, but when people pursue their private happiness without a planning framework to shape overall growth, you end up with a dysfunctional system that interferes with everyone's happiness. The missing planning framework that I just mentioned is called smart growth, and it's the logic behind the growth plan. How many people are familiar with smart growth as a vision? Okay, so everybody is, a lot of people have at least have a familiarity with it. So Susan asked me to spend a little bit of time just going over smart growth because it really is the model or the vision behind the growth plan. So I thought I would just give a little bit of a systematic view for what it is. So you may know that the concept of smart growth actually originated in the 1990s in the United States, and then it was adopted into Canada pretty quickly as an alternative vision to sprawl. So amongst the precepts of smart growth are, first of all, plan for a mix of land uses so that people can access daily destinations without necessarily having to use a car. Design neighborhoods to be more compact so that trips are shorter and less land is needed to accommodate the same amount of people and jobs. Provide a range of housing options to create complete communities that can appeal to people of different incomes, abilities, and ages, and create walkable and transit-friendly neighborhoods. Preserve open space, farmland, and environmental features. Direct development towards already built-up areas, especially to mixed-use centers that are well-served by transit and along transit lines. And finally, meet travel needs by investing in a variety of transportation options, including walking, biking, and transit. So what are the benefits of smart growth? By focusing growth in walkable, mixed-use employment hubs and transit corridors, smart growth means we can get by with fewer cars and less driving, so congestion is reduced, and so is the need to keep building more and wider roads. A mix of housing types, especially in locations close to transit or in walkable centers, makes housing more affordable for those who can't or who can't afford or who don't want to live in a single detached home in a car-oriented area. By making walking, biking, and transit available as realistic alternatives to cars, we can increase transportation options and make jobs and services more accessible for everyone, so we have a more equitable region. Less congestion in car use lowers air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions, while more compact housing reduces emissions from heating and cooling. And research shows that a smart growing city can use up to 1/3 of the energy that a sprawling city uses. After smoking, lifestyle diseases associated with physical inactivity are among the leading causes of preventable illnesses and death in Canada. And when people live close to workplaces and services, they have the option to walk, cycle, or take transit to get there, helping people to stay physically active and healthy. A mix of housing types and transportation options allows people to stay in their homes as they age, reducing dislocation and maintaining social networks, which are known to be essential for long-term well-being. Healthier, well-housed people with a variety of transport options are not only happier, but incur lower social costs as well. Also, smart growing communities have lower infrastructure and servicing costs because they're just more spatially efficient. Focusing growth in more compact communities means we make a smaller footprint on the land, and we're in a better position to preserve natural areas in and around the community. And this preserves our access to recreational opportunities and maintains the agricultural base that supports a whole way of life in rural areas outside the city. And finally, a more robust planning framework used to direct development in smarter ways means more opportunities for people to engage in the planning and development process and shape their environments, which of course is what we're talking about here today. Darren has already gone over the New Growth Plan and the various policy changes it entails. My goal here is to talk in more detail about what the New Growth Plan means in terms of opportunities for the public to become engaged in the implementation process. I'm also going to talk about the new OMB, which I'm sure many of you have heard about, the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, and how the new rules affect the strategies that are most likely to be successful when it comes to influencing planning and development decisions in our communities. As Darren explained, provincial law requires that municipalities implement the growth plan by bringing their official plans into conformity with the growth plan within specified time frames, up to 5 years. In two-tier municipalities, that is, municipalities with an upper and lower tier municipal government, first the upper tier amends or revises the plan, and then the lower tier municipalities carry through with the changes in their own plans that reflect the decisions made at the upper tier level. Some growth plan policies, like those related to climate change and complete streets, can be implemented through one-off official plan amendments. but certain key policies have to be implemented in an integrated manner through an official plan review process, which is called a Municipal Comprehensive Review, or an MCR, and I think Darren was going to go into that a little bit more, but ran out of time. So if you just keep that in mind, the Municipal Comprehensive Review, or MCR, I'm going to be calling it the MCR process. So this is the consultation and background study process that the upper tier and single tier municipalities have to go through in order to adapt their existing plans to the growth plan through an official plan review or amendment. The policies involved in this integrated planning process are the policies related to growth management, which is at the heart of the growth plan. According to the guidance documents that the province has provided to help municipalities navigate the new growth plan, the Municipal Comprehensive Review, the MCR, process will proceed through a series of steps, with the early upstream decisions setting the frame for the later downstream decisions. And the steps include the allocation of population and employment growth to lower tier municipalities, the identification of growth centres and major transit station areas destined for intensification, setting intensification and density targets, and if it's an upper tier, allocating those to the lower tier. The land budget, which determines how much new land will be needed to accommodate growth, and the identification of specific expansion areas. These policies determine how growth will be shaped, where it will occur, what type of housing will be produced over the coming decades. Municipal decisions on these matters will affect the agricultural base, the natural heritage system, housing supply, employment opportunities, travel patterns, and more. In other words, these policies have major environmental, economic, and social impacts. The province also requires that a large number of background studies as part of this MCR, Municipal Comprehensive Review process, be prepared by the municipality in order to support the decisions the municipality has to make as it moves through the MCR steps in adapting its official plan to the growth plan. Here's a list of the type of studies that are included. It's actually a longer list. These are just some of the highlights. An intensification strategy that would identify existing areas that can accommodate further development, an employment strategy, a housing strategy, an analysis to justify any conversions of employment areas to non-employment areas, an analysis to justify any refinements to the natural heritage system or agricultural system, infrastructure plans for water, wastewater, and transit, and a transportation demand management strategy. So those are all the components that have to go into the MCR process so that the upper tier municipality or single tier municipality can adapt its official plan to the new growth plan. So what are the implications for residents? Because that's really what I want to get to. What this means is that if you want to have an impact on the downstream issues, like whether there's going to be an expansion of the settlement area in your municipality onto adjacent agricultural land, it would be wise for you to be involved in the upstream decisions, such as the setting of intensification and density targets. These upstream decisions might take place 2 or even 3 years before the municipality announces that there's going to be an expansion of the settlement boundary. So the time frame has gotten very long, so that you need to be involved in the early stages of this MCR process, which is being conducted by the upper tier or single tier municipalities. If you want to have an impact on the downstream later on, decisions like an expansion to the growth settlement to the settlement boundaries. The step-by-step process for the MCR and the large number of background plans and strategies, such as the ones I just mentioned, also mean that there will be many entry points for citizen engagement in the process. It's a long process. It has a lot of studies and strategies and plans that feed into it and that eventually come out in the OP review, the official plan review. And all those steps provide it's grist for your mill, because those steps are are entry points for you to get involved. Although the province doesn't require any public consultation or engagement on most of those steps, it's very likely that councils will want to consult with the public just because of the significance of the decisions that are being made to shape growth for decades to come. Another implication of the new growth plan is that in two-tier municipalities, it gives the upper tier a more prominent role in the implementation process. Basically, the upper tier municipalities are mandated to make the key growth management decisions using the MCR process, and then the lower tier municipalities adjust their official plans accordingly and carry out more detailed planning exercises. So a lot of the weight is at the upper tier. In other words, in two-tier municipalities, the upper tier is making many of the high-level decisions, and citizens groups would benefit from being aware of their pivotal role when developing strategies to influence growth management decisions in their communities. Okay, the other major change, that's the growth plan and the implications for citizen engagement. The other major change in the planning landscape that I want to discuss is the new OMB, the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, which many of you, or most of you, I'm sure, have heard about, the LPAT. I'm just going to refer to it as the LPAT. It gives more authority to municipalities to make planning decisions by changing three things: the types of planning decisions that can be appealed, the types of arguments that can be used in an appeal, and the nature of the appeal process. And all three of these things are going to have a big impact on citizens who want to appeal or be party to an appeal of municipal planning and development decisions. So I'm going to go through those three things, and then I'll talk about what the implications are for citizen involvement. In terms of matters that can be appealed, most importantly, developers or anyone else will no longer be allowed to appeal provincially approved upper and single tier official plans, including the MCR policies that they contain, the Municipal Comprehensive Review process that I mentioned with all the background studies. At the lower tier level, no appeal will be allowed of intensification policies related to areas around major transit stations. This means that once the new upper tier and single tier official plans are in place, their provisions will have staying power. The areas slated for intensification, density, and intensification targets, and the rest of the matters dealt with in the MCR process will be beyond appeal by developers or anyone else. In terms of the arguments, the LPAT rules only allow three grounds for an appeal: inconsistency with provincial policy statement, nonconformity with the growth plan, and conflict with an official plan. This means that citizens won't be able to argue that a development is unsightly, blocks their sun, or is out of character with their neighborhood. If the development meets the policies of the official plan, it can't be fought at the LPAT. You can no longer take a developer to the OMB and say that the development that's going up next door is unsightly. That is not a good planning principle, and the LPAT won't consider that as an argument. The only argument is that it's inconsistent with an official plan or with provincial planning policy or the growth plan. Furthermore, only arguments introduced during council proceedings at the municipal level while they're considering the development can be used at the LPAT to influence the tribunal's decision on an appeal. What this means is that citizens will have to take council deliberations very seriously and engage fully at the official plan review level, not just at the level of site-specific development applications. In terms of the process at the LPAT, the new rules are designed to make it more citizen-friendly. The tribunal will take time to explain things to people involved in an appeal in order to level the playing field between developers, municipalities, and residents. And the new LPAT Support Center will provide people for support for citizens who want to participate in an appeals process. These changes should make hearings less adversarial, cheaper, and bring a better power balance between developers, municipalities, and residents. In other words, make it easier for residents and ratepayer groups to intervene at the LPAT. So what are the implications for residents of these changes at the LPAT? The upshot is that we're going to have a more policy-driven planning process in the Greater Golden Horseshoe that gives more authority and weight to official plans. A more policy-driven process means more opportunities for meaningful public input, but only if residents understand the system and how to use it to get their points across. For example, debates about whether a development is desirable or not will really come down to whether it's consistent with the official plan and growth plan or not, as I said. So if citizens want to influence development patterns on the ground, they can't wait until the rezoning signs go up next door. Citizen groups need to be paying attention to the upstream municipal comprehensive review process and official planning review process. And for those in two-tiered municipality, this means getting involved at both tiers of government, but especially at the upper tier level. Unfortunately, citizen involvement in official plan reviews to date has often been lukewarm, especially at the upper tier level. So I think the challenge is to find ways to mobilize people for this early involvement in the MCR process and official plan review. So I hope I've convinced you that involvement in the MCR process is going to be crucial at both the big picture planning scale and the individual development scale. Now I'd like to talk about some of the opportunities for engagement in the MCR process and the official plan reviews needed to implement the new growth plan. First, I'll talk about the legally required opportunities that municipalities have to provide, and then I'll go on to mention some emerging approaches beyond statutory requirements, including both in-person and online techniques. So the legally required public consultation on official plan reviews. As many of you know, a municipality has two options for revising its official plan. And here we're talking about revising it in order to bring it into conformity with growth plan policies. It can either undertake a full review of its existing OP, or it can do a more limited OP amendment, and it depends on how extensive the changes are going to be. To undertake an OP review, an official plan review, the Planning Act requires a minimum amount of public consultation. Specifically, your municipality must ensure that the draft plan is released to the public, an open house is held to present the draft plan and answer questions, notice is given for a public meeting where citizens are invited to make an oral or written deputation on the draft plan, and a special meeting of council is held to consider the draft plan, which is open to the public. Then the plan is approved by council and sent to the province or the upper tier municipality for approval, depending on which one is the approval authority. Not only are these requirements pretty slim, but past experience shows that they often don't attract a lot of public interest. Fortunately, municipalities in the Greater Golden Horseshoe are exploring many other ways to boost citizen involvement in official plan reviews, including what are called high-touch or face-to-face events and high-tech measures, including the internet and mobile communication technology. In terms of the high-touch options, some municipalities stage workshops to engage in intensive discussion on planning issues or to help develop growth management options. A pop-up kiosk involves setting up displays in high-traffic places like shopping malls with planners there to answer questions, provide pamphlets, and invite people to upcoming consultation events. Another approach is to set up a planning storefront like they did in Waterloo on a main street during the official plan review period, where planners are available to offer information and answer questions. Piggybacked presentations is when planners reach out by making presentations at community events or in public places like libraries, rather than trying to get people to come to open houses. Some municipalities appoint citizens to a planning advisory committee that provides input on the plan review as it moves forward. Or planners may take groups of residents out on a walking tour of specific sites in order to explore different ways to accommodate growth, for instance. Technology is also opening up new options to engage the public, including things like an online survey to gather citizen opinions on growth management options, social media to reach out to new people through friendship networks, digital newsletters to circulate news about the official plan review, one-stop web portals for generating discussion, archiving documents, tracking the MCR process, and disseminating surveys, which is what they're doing in York Region. An ideas forum where participants share their opinions online and vote or comment on each other's ideas, and webinars to discuss strategic documents as they're released by the municipality during the MCR process. By using high-touch and high-tech consultation options in combination, some municipalities in the Greater Golden Horseshoe are finding that they can reach thousands of individual residents. Up to 25% of residents in some cases have been involved in official plan reviews through these techniques, and do a much better job of mobilizing resident groups to engage with the official plan review process. So far, I've been looking mostly at how changes to the planning landscape may affect opportunities for public engagement in the NCR process and the review of official plans to bring them into conformity with the growth plan. But I know many of you are trying to shape growth at a more site-specific level, so I'd like to mention two other pieces of the evolving planning system that link more directly to influencing development applications. These are the Community Planning Permit System and the Complete Application Requirements System. Both of these approaches require that municipalities adopt enabling policies in their official plans in order to make use of them, and this provides yet another incentive for resident groups to pay close attention to official plans, official plan reviews, and official plan amendments. So first is the Community Planning Permit System. This system is the Community Planning Permit System, or CPP, can have a major impact on how citizens are able to intervene in development in a whole district of their municipality as opposed to site by site. A municipality that uses this approach can basically pre-approve development in a whole district by passing a single bylaw that lays out not just the land use, the heights, and the densities that will be accepted there, but the landscaping requirements, road patterns, urban design, parking, and affordable housing requirements. So it's an omnibus type of zoning, and it applies to a whole district of the municipality, and it's a pre-zoning. In a district subject to a CPP bylaw, the normal consultation process on development is suspended. Developers don't have to go through a rezoning application on each parcel. If the development proposed is consistent with the official plan and the CPP bylaw for that area, it can't be turned down by the municipality, no matter how much citizens dislike it. So what are the implications for residents? The Community Planning Permit System is attractive to municipalities because it can be used to bring a detailed planning vision to a whole area of town, such as an area slated for intensification, while developers like it because they can get more predictable and streamlined planning approvals process. But for citizens, the CPP system may be a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it provides them with an opportunity to influence development outcomes in a large area without having to engage developers over each parcel of land. On the other hand, if residents aren't paying attention, they could miss out entirely on influencing development decisions in the affected areas. The official plan policies and the CPP bylaw under it that sets up the use of this power in a whole district of the municipality could be adopted years in advance of actual development applications coming in. And it's possible that there would be no further opportunities for public consultation in the affected area once the CPP bylaw is passed for that area. Moreover, the outcome of an application in a CPP area is not appealable by citizens to the new LPAT. Very important to know that. If the application is approved by the municipality, in other words, that's the end of the road. Only developers can appeal an application if it's turned down by the municipality. The CPP system has been around for over a decade. It was originally called the Development Permit System, but originally it didn't attract much attention and it wasn't much used, but it seems that recently it is getting more attention and more use. At least Toronto, Brampton, and Ajax are using this system already in the Greater Golden Horseshoe. Innisfil and Niagara-on-the-Lake are also exploring the use of it there. Okay, the other development-oriented feature of the planning framework that I wanted to call your attention to is the Complete Application Requirements System. This has also been around for over 10 years, but I'm not sure how much attention citizen groups have been paying to it so far. According to the Planning Act, municipalities are permitted to require that a developer consults with municipal planners prior to submitting an application. And as part of this pre-consultation, the municipality can require that a developer provides whatever information or studies that the municipality thinks is necessary to properly assess the application. And the application isn't considered complete until the developer submits all of the required studies. And here are some examples of the type of studies that could be required. Planning studies like land use compatibility study, traffic impact studies, cultural heritage impact assessments, noise and vibration studies on the engineering side, urban design studies, environmental impact study, or a study on financial impacts of the proposed development on the municipality. So what are the implications for residents? Well, as many of you know, by the time a proposal gets to a public hearing, the design process is already well advanced and options for change are often limited. The complete application requirement system is interesting because it provides citizens with the information they need to understand a development proposal and express their point of view before the developer starts negotiating with the planners. Well, with the new LPAT system, the opportunity is to negotiate development proposals based on planning merits, as I said before, and the complete application requirement system can give residents the information that they need to do exactly that. Currently, only about 1/3 of municipalities within the Greater Golden Horseshoe are using the complete application requirement system, so there's quite a bit of room for it to grow in terms of its application. Okay, now I want to turn, that's the part of my presentation on the changing planning landscape and strategies and opportunities for citizen involvement in planning and development issues. Now I want to turn to discussing some ideas for tools that environmental defense could develop to help assist citizens better engage in official plan reviews and other planning processes. And I just want to point out that these are preliminary ideas, and one of the goals of the workshop is to get your feedback on them. So the first one is a citizen engagement best practices guide. And the idea here would be to produce an illustrated guide to the most innovative practices for engaging citizens in official plan reviews and other planning processes. For each technique, the guide could include information such as a description of the technique and how it was used in specific municipalities, the range of planning processes that the technique would be relevant to, strengths and weaknesses of the technique, URLs and other sources of information on the technique. The second idea is for infographic pamphlets, and these would be attractively designed and illustrated pamphlets of a few pages each that would cover issues such as the benefits of smart growth, which would cover the environmental, social, and economic benefits of changing our growth patterns in both urban and suburban settings, visualizing densities, which might draw upon some of the information that we heard Christopher and Robert talking about, which would be comprised of graphics and photos showing how various numbers of people can be accommodated on the same plot of land, depending on differences in building type. And this would help residents visualize what density looks like for various intensification targets. Negotiating changes to development proposals, which would present information on how to approach developers and the municipality in order to negotiate changes to a development proposal. Essentially, this would be a fact sheet on why early consultation is important, how to ask for it, and how to do it. Another idea is for a regional smart growth alliance, and this would be an alliance of ratepayer and neighborhood groups to provide a voice for residents in provincial and municipal planning issues throughout the Greater Golden Horseshoe. And the alliance could share information on successful engagement strategies, push municipalities to develop monitoring frameworks to track growth plan implementation, advocate for smarter growth, present a united voice to call out bad developments, and propose changes to the growth plan and related plans in the next review of the Greater Golden Horseshoe planning framework in 10 years, presumably. Another idea is to create a roadmap to growth plan implementation, and the idea here would be to produce a tool that lays out the Municipal Comprehensive Review, MCR, process from a citizen's point of view. And this could be comprised of an infographic overview of the MCR process with a hypothetical timeline showing the key steps in municipal decision-making, and then providing further pages that drill down into each step. The MCR process is complex, and the guidance documents that the province has issued to help municipalities navigate their official plan reviews and efforts to incorporate the new policies of the new growth plan are extremely complicated. They're written for planners and developers, not written for citizens working on the sides of their desk or in their spare time. So I feel like there's something needed, something like this, to help clarify, simplify, and present the whole process in a way that would make sense to citizens. The roadmap would indicate places to expect citizen engagement opportunities in the step-by-step process that I laid out, or where to demand them if your municipality isn't already planning for a robust public consultation program. Another idea is a Citizens Academy on growth plan implementation. A Citizens Academy is a workshop or webinar series for residents that informs participants on a particular topic and helps build their capacity for intervention on the issues at hand. A Citizens Academy on the growth plan can inform ratepayer groups as to what to expect and how to interact with growth plan implementation process. And it could cover things like the MCR process at the upper tier and single tier levels, lower tier official plan changes in response, key provincial guidance documents that I just mentioned, engagement opportunities and techniques, and help with communication and strategy development. And the last idea is for a Hotspot Web Platform. And this would be a web platform that tracks major development applications in the Greater Golden Horseshoe of concern to local resident groups. It could track key features such as the location of the development, the housing or building type, the size of the building, proximity to transit, what the walk score is, whether it went to the LPAT or not, and if it did go to the LPAT, what were the outcomes. So those are all the ideas that we have, and we'd like you later in the workshop to reflect on those and comment on them.